And now we're joined by Angela Hutchison of BIH Entertainment. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having
Fantastic.
me.
It's our pleasure. Very excited about your special coming up. We're going to talk all about that and your company, your nonprofit. But I'd like to get a little bit of background. I know you come from Chicago. Tell us about how you got interested in being involved in the entertainment industry and how you eventually gravitated to coming out here to Hollywood.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I went to school at University of Michigan, and I actually majored in industrial and operations engineering. So, so definitely like a 360-degree turn from what I'm doing now. But I always was the one who, like whenever we had to work on reports for college, I would always be the writer of the group because engineers hate to write. And so I think from that I realized I was very creative. And I literally, after I finished college, I literally said, Mom, I'm moving to LA. I packed my bags and I said, I'm going to make this movie. And that I had written and literally came cross country. Yeah, all the way from Chicago. Literally drove cross country.
The American dream.
Right.
Go to Hollywood with a script in your hand and a big dream.
Exactly.
So did you know people out here, or did you kind of jump in the deep end?
I did not know anyone, not one single person in California. But yeah, I remember I finished college, and after I was trying to decide what I was going to do, whether I was going to, I interviewed at like an advertising agency, and I interviewed at a couple of engineering firms, just trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. The funny thing is that I was actually in Blockbuster back in the day, right? I'm aging myself a little bit with Blockbuster, with like Red Box and Netflix, but we were in Blockbuster, and my mom and I were trying to find a movie to watch, and we sometimes spend hours like finding a movie. And I said, I really want to see a movie that's about like an entertainment news reporter who has to like uncover the dirt of their celebrity friends. She said, oh, that sounds like a great movie. What's it called? And I said, Hollywood Chaos. And she said, oh, we should get it. And I was like, oh, I just made that up. It doesn't exist. I was just saying that's the kind of movie I would like to see. And she said, you just came up with that in the store? Because I had a whole plot. And I said, yeah. And she said, you should write it. And I said, huh? So that's what I did. I wrote the script and got a book and moved out here. And it took me 10 years to make the movie, but I eventually made it. So Hollywood Chaos is available. It's on Hulu now and Amazon.
Great.
So that's sort of my entryway into the business. Yeah.
So you basically created this independently?
Yep, I produced it.
And how did you get it funded? How was that process?
I produced it.
Like?
I mean, it was, I started originally wanting to make the movie for like $3 million. So, and, just trying to contact rich people and all kinds I did all kinds of things. And obviously try to get it through the studio system first, too. But it was a challenge. It was hard. And it was before they were making a lot of $3 million movies. Now it's, they do a lot of that. And so I eventually decided, you know what, I'm just going to do this. I had a lot of filmmaker friends around me, and I was working because I've had a long career. So I worked first as a talent agent for a couple years, and then I worked as a casting director. And while I was working as a casting director with a producer, I was able to see how she got things done. Tangi Miller, she was actually an actress on Felicity. And so from working with her, I said, you know what, if she can do this, I can too. And so from that, I just decided to, buckle down, read some books, contacting people I know, crowd fundraising. We did, crowdfunding and all kinds of, ways that we did to raise the money, and then got it done. So it was a journey.
It's kind of like the Hollywood Shuffle story with Robert Townsend, the credit cards.
Right.
Where there's a will, there's a way, and
totally.
There's a lot of people that are waiting for their next role. A lot of people that are available, and they'd rather be working even if it's deferred or a lower wage than to sit there waiting for something that might not happen.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And even with a lot of our crew, I mean, the majority of our crew was paid, but we had a lot of like our PAs, a lot of administrative things. A lot of people, we just did deferred pay with them because they wanted the work experience. What other better way to get the work experience of working on a feature film than actually doing it? So I think a lot of the people who were involved really had a great time doing it, and we learned a lot. It was definitely crazy, especially I didn't go to film school, so even some basic things were just kind of like over my head. Even something as simple as not really understanding to respect all of your departments. So for me, wardrobe, for example, seemed like such a basic department. It's like, oh, they dress the actors. It's kind of like, let them do their thing, whatever. But there would be times and situations will come up and they would say, you're shooting the wrong scene. You can't shoot with that outfit on. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It didn't seem like a big deal. But then after, when we're going through editing, and we're like, oh my gosh, they have on the wrong outfit. So we had to change. We literally had to edit the movie differently, which didn't change it too much. But just something like that, learning to really value each department that, that's working with you. So it's definitely a very collaborative effort.
I mean, even with a, independent team, you realize when you watch a movie and there's all these credits rolling, it's like, wow, okay, well, even if we streamline this thing down, we still need wardrobe and set and cinematographers.
Is so crucial.
Yeah.
From the bottom up, and sometimes the bottom, technically the bottom are, really, really helpful people who are helping you get it done. So I value,
especially if you're trying to do it quickly. How many days did it take you to shoot that?
We shot the movie in 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, back to back, consecutive, and then we also had a DP that we hired in France because we wanted to shoot some original footage there. So we had him shoot some original scenes and then sent us the footage. But we basically shot it over 10 days, and then we had to do pickups maybe another 2 days. So maybe a total of 12, 14 days in all. Yeah, but it was a very crazy shoot. I mean, we were shooting 10 pages a day. It was insane. My director, bless him, he was being driven crazy by me and all of the crew. It was definitely an amazing experience, but it's not for everybody.
It takes a special breed, and I always tell people, if you want to get into the entertainment business or come to Hollywood and try and make it, so to speak, you have to be ready to pay some crazy dues.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for anything. And it's a lot better, like you say, to be working, gaining that experience, even if it's low or no pay, than to sit there reading about it in books. You're going to learn so much more by doing it.
Oh yeah, and even like I said, I worked as a casting director and I still do casting. I just did a film actually last year, but there's no school on how to cast a movie. There's no school to become a casting director.
Yeah.
That's something you learn along the way. Same with agenting. If you want to become an agent, you really can't necessarily take a class on how to agent. You just kind of got to dive in. You have to work there from the mailroom on up and understand the inner workings of the business, as opposed to some other careers like becoming a director or a writer. You can be taught how to write well, and how to direct. There's some technical aspects that you can be taught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have your nonprofit organization, Breaking Into Hollywood.
Yes.
Tell us about how that came about, why you feel that's needed, and what you actually do.
Breaking in Hollywood is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that focuses on helping entertainment professionals pursue their careers. And what we do is we basically hold events throughout the year, 1 to 3 events a month, on various topics, whether it's a Q&A with a literary agent or manager, producer, director. Our last event was a Sony music producer, so we literally do all aspects of the entertainment business. And the reason why I started the organization, it's actually another little funny story with my mother. I was actually on the phone with her, and I was so just depressed about my career. I felt like I had done everything right. I was working at MGM at the time, and I was writing scripts and networking and meeting people, getting mentors, and just doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing, and things were not happening. I was trying to get my scripts sold and just nothing was happening. And she asked me, well, what was I doing to give back? And I said, I mentor girls in my church. I do a lot of stuff to give back. She was like, well, what are you doing to give back in the specific area that you want to be successful in? And I was like, nothing. And so that weekend, Breaking Into Hollywood was birthed, and since then, that was in 2005. And so with Breaking Hollywood, we also have a magazine, Hollywood and Vibe magazine. It's a print magazine, but also online. And then we have our Hollywood and Vibe Film Festival, which happens at the end of the year. And so whoever wins the grand jury prize actually goes on the cover of the magazine for the next issue. And then we also have Hollywood and Vine Books, which is a self-publishing partnership company that works with authors who want to self-publish, but they don't want to do the process themselves. So we sort of work with them in tandem to make their book come, or their manuscript, bring their manuscript to a book.
Fantastic. And how many issues a year does the magazine come out?
So the magazine originally was bi-monthly. Now we're quarterly. And so the next issue, we actually just released the issue, and so our next issue will be towards like the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then I think we probably get about 100,000 clicks a month to it, and it's read primarily in LA or like entertainment hub communities, but it's also read in 10 other countries, which is interesting. When we see the Google Analytics to see like where it's being read, we're like, oh, that's interesting. And we've got a couple of interesting emails from England, Japan, France, of people who have read the magazine and sent us some interesting their thoughts and perspectives on it. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are very grateful that there's access like that available to them
absolutely.
to gain that knowledge, because we all know calling these giant companies, unless you're already doing business, you're not going to get past the voicemail or secretary.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, you know. Although, you know, I mean, although the biggest thing is now the doors are becoming so much more open, I think, than they were back in the day, because everything is going so digital that, you know, I think a lot of the companies are being more open to new voices. They set up a lot of different diversity programs and fellowships and things like that to become more accessible, so that they're not accessible. So I think it's getting a little bit better with the open doors, but certainly the information and resources are another tool, you know, to help you gain the understanding and information that you need in order to be able to break into the industry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen a big shift, like you were saying, from Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and a video store on every block to the Netflix and Redbox and Amazons of the world. Where do you see the current state is? And for a filmmaker who has a film, what are some suggestions on how they can go about at least make it available, whether it be physically or digitally?
Well, I think, you know, I think most importantly, you have to figure out what it is your ultimate goal, what you feel is best for your project, because it's really going to be a case by case basis. You know what I mean? For some people, you know, online is just told, like, I don't want my movie online. I don't want to stream it online. For whatever reason, they have a stigma about that, not quite understanding, well, you can make a lot of money doing that. So you kind of have to go with what you feel is best, you know, and I'm even one of those people, I really like DVDs, you know, so I'm even like my husband and I, we went from not being able to go to the Blockbuster, now we just like going through the Redbox, you know, I like having a physical DVD. However, you know, one of our actresses who was in the movie Hollywood Chaos was saying that she was around her, you know, family and friends, and she was telling them about this movie she was in, and one of her nieces or nephews that's in high school was like, what's the name of the movie? And before she could like get out all the information, it was like playing, you know, on their big screen TV, because she had already downloaded and everything. It's like, oh my gosh. So it's so interesting. But I think that digital media is definitely a great platform, because you can do it so quickly, you know, even with like the documentary that, you know, that we're going to be talking about, Hush.
Yeah.
I mean, when I came up with that idea, that was in less than a year ago. So I think I first came up with the idea in March, and like June I sort of officially had a name for it and made moves to make it happen. But within less than a year from, you know, actually concept to completion of it airing on PBS, I mean, that's a huge jump, and that's just because everything is so accessible. Everybody is so accessible. Production is accessible. Where it's airing, you know, and all of those things are so much more accessible. So you have to kind of figure out, you know, based on your project and your goals, what's the best outlet for it.
Sure. Now let's talk about Hush. Give us an idea what HUSH stands for, why you felt it was very timely for a documentary like this, and why PBS is a great vehicle for you.
Yes, well, Hush stands for Hollywood's Uncovered Sexual Harassment. And the name, I actually came up with it because my grandmother, whenever she would be talking with like her friends around town about gossip and stuff, she would always be like, "Hush, honey," but she didn't really mean be quiet. She was like, "Hush, tell me more." So hush, although it usually means to be quiet, the documentary is really a tell-all. It's really revealing from an all-female cast of different stories, very personal, very intimate, straightforward stories of an experience that happened to them, and then sharing how that affected their life, and hopefully the viewers will be touched by it. The reason why I came up with it is because I remember it was over Christmas, and we were talking with one of my friends that told me like some crazy situation that had happened to her, and I was like, this is crazy. Tons of things have happened to me. I've been in the business for, like 15 years, and so I have, from the first time I moved out here till even, probably like I was trying to sell my film, and I've had just crazy things happen, and some are a little bit more funny, and some are just unbelievable, at this stage. At first I thought, well, once I get married, it'll stop. No. Once I have kids, people understand, I'll be like off the market, like completely I'm not interested. I got 3 kids, like a husband, like clearly I'm not interested in whatever you're offering. No, that doesn't help. So it's been interesting to see like it's sort of part of the industry in some regard. And so the reason why I want to do documentary is to help other women who are, whether you're very established or you're coming into the business, to understand that it's sort of sexual harassment, it exists. It's here. The documentary is not necessarily going to change that, but what I do hope that as you enter the situations, you'll be able to better equipped to how to deal with those situations, to use your gut instincts and things so that you don't get into situations that are dangerous necessarily, as opposed to kind of funny or silly stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, this, like so many industries, is somewhat of a male-dominated field with the heads of the studios and all that. And so many of the starlets trying to make it, so to speak, are, used in their games they play. Absolutely. Because they have the leverage. They're the gatekeeper. You're trying to get through this gate, here's what you need to do.
What you have to do it. Yeah. And quite frankly, and a lot of men are not afraid to tell women that. I mean, I've had, like, one of the situations I discussed in the documentary is what happened to me. It was earlier when I first moved out here, and I had gotten my script to a major production company, and I had a meeting with the top executive there, and he was like, we would love to buy your script. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And he basically was like, under the condition that I sleep with him. And he's like, if you're willing to put out, we're willing to put up the money for it. And at first I thought he was totally joking, but he wasn't. So it's just, again, like you said, it's because he knew that, like, I'm new here, and, it's sort of the power struggle. And on top of it, another reason why I think it's important to make something like this is that because he did that, it wasn't the first time. I'm sure that wasn't the first time he tried it. So he probably was successful at some point. So as women, we have to be a little bit more confident in saying no and not doing certain things, because it just makes it much harder for the next person that's coming along. So we cannot entirely just blame, the documentary is not a male bashing, thing. It's really like an open call a wake up call to women to say, we are responsible for our careers.
Yeah. Too. Not to be on your guard, so in case situations come up, you're prepared. Mm-hmm. You're not shocked, like, I can't believe this is happening. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, someone like that in that position of power probably has girls available, whether he's going to a bar or a club. Totally. So a lot of this is like a power trip.
Definitely.
It's like he needs to conquer as opposed to just be with female companionship. That's got to be everywhere in the bars and clubs of Hollywood.
Which is what we sort of, unfortunately, when we think about the Bill Cosby story, which is sort of, it's like a man of such prestige, although he hasn't necessarily been convicted of anything. I mean, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. But because there's so much, so many women coming forward, we have to kind of say, well, some of this is probably, kind of true. So, But I think the thing is when something like that happens and no one spoke up, those women were just silent for years. And so now they're, one by one coming forward. and we live in such a in such a society where we often blame the victim society. And so, I mean, I remember when I actually heard the first couple of stories, I was thinking, well, you know, you went to his hotel, he's a married man, so what do you expect? I mean, like, what were you thinking was going to happen? And, you know, then one of my friends will say, well, even if she did want to have sex with him, maybe she didn't want to be, you know, drugged and have sex. She wanted to have it a normal way. So it was all these discussions we were having as women. Like,
or
well,
if he said, I'm casting, I need to meet you, by the way, I'm staying here. It wasn't necessarily like come back to my room.
Right.
It's like, here's where I'm meeting.
Right, and so there's all these different scenarios that we tossing out. Well, this could happen, that could happen. You know, we don't know because we weren't there, so we don't know how exactly each of these scenarios went down. But I did find it interesting that, you know, all of my friends had a story to tell. And even when I was deciding to do this documentary, I went to a couple of my friends and said, hey, do you want to be in this? You know, I know you had this story, that story. And most of them were like, no. Most of them didn't want to, you know, ultimately be blacklisted. You know, they didn't want to speak up and be the tattletale actress that tells all. They want to continue working. And, you know, I understand that, you know, to some degree.
The good old boy network would just shut them out.
Right. And I understand that, you know. And so it was a challenge to try to find women who had very credible stories, who were capable of talking about it and in a very articulate way. And so when I put the casting notice out, I was shocked by the amount of people that were coming in from New York to Chicago to LA. It was just incredible. And actually we had a couple of the Bill Cosby victims, one in particular that wanted to be in it, but I didn't want to have her in it necessarily because I really wanted to tell fresh stories. I really wanted to be stories that you hadn't heard, and I also think that there's been such a focus on Bill Cosby, and so it kind of takes away from the issue. So with these women, some of them were with famous people, but you won't know who they are because none of the perpetrators or male people are exposed or talked about. Yeah, they're not identified.
Now, obviously, with situations like that, again, with the victims, you read these comments like, "Oh, these are gold diggers. They're just out to get Bill Cosby's money." When if that was the case, they would have gone to the police like right away.
A long time ago, right?
They were trying to pursue this entertainment dream, you know, and not be blacklisted, thinking he's connected to the power brokers in Hollywood.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because, you know, I also wonder, because I've even said comments like that too. I'm like, oh, well, they're just trying to get their career started up again, you know, because now they're on the media circuits, and, you know, and you do have to wonder like what struck someone to want to speak up now versus later, you know. And he had also had so much stuff in the works, you know, where they just fed up, where they just, you know, like, I can't take this, I want to share. Like, what was the you know, the thing that just pushed them into wanting to expose
it seemed like when someone opened the floodgates to say, okay, now there's power in numbers. I can come through and tell my story, and I'm not going to be this ostracized person in the media that's no one believes and they're attacking, and my family's affected, and, you know, there's power in numbers. And yeah, obviously it's not all proven. There may be some girls jumping on the bandwagon, but, you know, obviously things like this have happened for years. You hear about the casting couch going all the way back to the early days of Hollywood.
And it's not new. It's been happening since forever, and it happens amongst people who are famous and who are not famous, you know. And there's many women, you know, they always have like the video, what do they call it, the video girl vixens. I mean, there's many women who move forward and they want to. I won't go as far as say they want to do it, but they have done it to move ahead, and they continue to do this, you know. And so you know, there's such a fine line. We live in such a fine line society, you know. I mean, from a strip club, right? You might pay to go to a strip club, and it's essentially a legal thing. Well, so how is that different when it comes to a workplace situation? I've had one person who's not in the Hush documentary. Her story was just so borderline. It was really hard to kind of tell that story, but I mean, just using her as an example, you know, she was working in a, you know, not necessarily as a stripper, but kind of like that, an escort kind of situation. It was a legal thing, but it was like that was what she was getting paid to do. But then when it came to a situation where it was her work and professionalism, and the same person knew her from that, they sort of tried to blur those lines, and she's like, no. And so that becomes tricky for even a man. Like, okay, well, this is okay, but then this is not okay. So as women, we really have to take it upon ourselves to be as clear as we can about, what we want from someone and how we're going to go about getting it. Even our own careers, we have to be, we have to try our best to, I think, pursue careers and that positively impact our society and women.
Yeah.
In general, because I think only by doing that can it help men and women
realize they
collectively.
can't get away with it.
It's tough, yeah.
Now, obviously, we're seeing more women become CEOs, become governors and mayors, and all that. We might even have a woman president one day.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Do you see that as kind of chipping away at that feeling that women are second status to men, and documentaries like this will expose, like today with the internet, you really can't hide behind these shadows in these boardrooms. There's
I think it's helping. I think we're definitely in a place where society is getting better and we're moving forward, and I think we're definitely advancing, and I think that women are more and more becoming, heads of studios and, production companies, even within a lot of the unions, the DGA. We have, I believe, an African American woman who's the president of that. So there's a lot of organizations where, women of diverse background and color and so forth are stepping up and are being respected in their fields. So I think we're definitely at a place where we're getting better. I still think, like always, there's room for improvement, and there's always going to be room for improvement until there's an equal, until everybody's receiving equal pay and there's equal jobs and all of those things. But I definitely think documentaries like this can help give women a voice, who don't often necessarily have one.
Sure. Now talk about the process of taking it to PBS. Was that the prime location? Did you shop it to others? Why did you end up at PBS? What did they? Why were they really welcoming of this?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because what happened is with my organization, Breaking in Hollywood, we had a speaker, Sabrina Thomas, who was the general manager for PBS, for KLCS here in Los Angeles, which is Channel 58, and so 58.1, and so she came to speak to our members on, PBS, what they're looking for, the types of things they're looking to acquire, and sort of like their vision board, for their slate, for their programming slate. And after hearing that discussion, I thought, I really should try to focus on getting something on PBS. They've got so many millions of viewers, and it seems like a great platform. I already have a contact. So I told her a little bit about the documentary, and she was right away like, oh my goodness, I would be on board. And she gave me a letter of support, which then we used to take that to try to get the fundraising. We tried to go after a couple of grants, but primarily our funding came from private donations and crowdfunding. And so with her with being able to utilize PBS's name essentially to get it funded, that was our, we have to let them air this, you know what I mean? Of course, where else would we go? Obviously it'd be great to have, one of the major networks, HBO or Showtime or whatever, pick it up, and who's to say that down the line that won't happen. We have very specific rights with them that they're going to air it here in Los Angeles. And so I think that PBS is also great. Actually, PBS, that particular channel, is on my TV 24/7 because I have 3 little children, so they're always watching the earlier mornings of Curious George and all of their children's programming, and in the evening it changes into adult programming. But I think PBS, with it being a very educational, it has that educational feel to it, which Hush is educational in some aspects, but it's also very eye-opening and very provocative. I think people will be shocked by it. We had a filmmaker, a friend of mine, who watched the film, and he was like, at first I thought, okay, it starts a little slow in the sense that the story is, kind of lighthearted. So you're kind of thinking oh, is this what I'm going to sit here and watch about, oh, somebody just tapped her butt, oh, what, no big deal. And then it elevates from that to how harsh it can be. And so I think that kind of draws the viewers in, a little bit. You're just like, oh my gosh, each time it's getting crazier. Oh my gosh, is this real? And it's very real. And I think coming from, directly from the women. So it's very shot in a very confessional style. So you're there the whole 60 minutes. Yeah. But PBS is a great place for it.
Yeah. No, it's always been traditionally a great home for new ideas and diverse programming.
Definitely.
Now, Talk about that as far as the world of documentaries. Personally, I can't get enough. I mean, to me, I'd rather watch a good interview or a good documentary on something than a fictional TV show, or not to disparage the current state of network TV, but personally, I'd rather get something out of my time. And documentaries seem to be becoming more popular. There's been a lot of breakthrough documentaries.
Absolutely.
I know there's like documentary channels that are starting. So where do you see the growth of the documentary?
Well, I think I think as if someone is a first-time filmmaker early in their career, I think documentaries is a great way to get started. You can essentially shoot a documentary with very little money, and it can be good and airable, especially if you're passionate about a particular topic. And I think, like you said, the documentaries are growing. I mean, even on Netflix, like I actually had to cancel my Netflix account at some point because I would just spend hours just looking at, oh my gosh, all the documentaries that were available and watching them. Okay, let's watch this one, let's watch this one. There's just so much information, and it's like having an encyclopedia. You know what I mean? It's like watching an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And so I think documentaries are a great way to not only tell a story, but also educate you about a particular topic, or just give you insight. And sometimes they can be quite entertaining too. There's not always just like throwing education or knowledge into you. Sometimes they're very enlightening and can be very humorous or funny. Yeah,
it's exciting. I mean, we used to have a lot more programming on network TV. Now you have 60 Minutes that might have 3 little 15-minute segments. No, we want an hour and a half. We want 2 hours. We want to go deep in that subject. Now, obviously, a lot of documentaries is interviews of the subject matter. In the area of free use, fair use, fair use, what is your knowledge as far as, for news purposes, you can gather certain information or footage and be able to use that under the fair use?
Yeah, well, with this particular, I didn't have to deal with fair use as much for this particular documentary because it's straight from the voice of the women. But I think that is certainly an avenue that a lot of filmmakers can utilize, because there's so much free and public information available to you to be able to incorporate into your story as you tell a story. One of the things we are doing with this documentary is using it as a platform to potentially have a show. So I developed another show that it's actually called Sex Unwanted, and it's actually a cross between like Dateline and Law and Order SVU, so to speak. A show not necessarily about Hollywood crimes, but just sex crimes in general, focused on that. And one of the women in Hush, Liz Crokin, who is a seasoned journalist, who's featured in there, would be the host of that show. So I think something that a lot of filmmakers are doing is creating documentaries and then having sort of a part two, whether it's a TV series, in my case, or a book, or some other form of media that you're using to kind of get the word out. So maybe your ultimate goal is to have this best-selling novel. You might consider doing a documentary about that subject matter, whether it's fiction or not. You can figure out a way to do a documentary about it, and then release that, and then have all of those viewers and eyes on it to then get the leverage to get a series or a book or a talk show or whatever it is might be your concept.
Sure. Now, in layman's terms, can you give any advice to filmmakers or people wanting to create a documentary on what is fair use, or what generally you might be able to get away with?
I don't know enough about it to give like full-fledged info. I mean, I do know, I don't know enough details to give the specifics.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I know if it's under the guise of basically news, it's information.
Yeah, but if it's just new,
a documentary, you can use certain pieces of film that's out there.
Yeah, you can use certain pieces of film if it's like under a certain amount of time, over certain minutes that
news
you're showing something.
And stuff.
And it's fairly. I mean, even to get news footage from like NBC or CBS, I mean, it's fairly, easy and doesn't cost necessarily a lot.
You have
I
a
think what
person
it
that
is,
licenses that stuff all day long.
but it's more. It's just time consuming. It can be
Yeah.
time consuming because when you think
waiting for the okay.
when you think about a documentary, if it's going to be a 60-minute or a 90-minute even documentary, and you have 30-second clips here and there, it can get very lengthy. And then you have all the different you got NBC and here and CNN and all the different outlets you may be going to. Some of them are owned by you might go to one Turner and it owns 3 or 4 entities, but essentially it can be more time consuming. But I don't think it's not very costly to do it, and it's pretty feasible. It's just get an intern or a couple interns to work with you through the process if you can't afford to actually spend the time yourself, or you can't afford to hire somebody. But it's fairly easy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
To do it.
Now, do you have, besides the one you just mentioned, any other new projects in the works that we should know about?
I'm working on a million things at a time, so I don't want to bore you with everything. But my website, IamAngelaMarie.com, I usually try to keep up to date with everything I have going on there.
Fantastic. And for those that might want to take part in some of your Breaking into Hollywood events, what's the website for that?
It's breakingintohollywood.org, and we have, like I said, events throughout the year. So we have them for non-members. Non-members generally pay $45, and then our members come for free. They pay one fee for the whole year, and they come to all of our events for free. So it's a great membership to be a part of. A great community of, the entertainment industry is so collaborative. So the reason why I like Breaking into Hollywood is because when I was in the business, all of the organizations were very specific for writers, the Scriptwriters Network, or Film Independent for producers, and so everything was very niche. And so with Breaking into Hollywood, or even all of the unions, right, SAG, DJ, everything is very separate. There's no entertainment guild of America that incorporates everybody. There is something for everyone, but it's very specific. And so Breaking in Hollywood is that place where you go for everybody, where no matter who you are, you can find your way in our organization, and you can come to an event that works for you. And also what's so great is that, I really encourage people to come, let's say, we had our Sony Music event, a couple weeks ago. I really encourage a writer who's maybe a script writer to come and sit and hear a music event, because maybe you can tap into songwriting. Maybe you can tap into another area of writing. And so I think when we have a lot of collaborative events like that, it helps you to explore different skill sets. Because if you had told me I was going to come to LA and I was going to be a talent agent and a casting director and a producer and a documentarian, I would be like, huh? And I'm an author of 5 books. There's no way you would have been able to tell me that. And so I've learned to sort of navigate my way through all the different areas that's here in LA.
Yeah, you want to keep a broad, growing knowledge. So
Definitely.
even if that's not your main area, you know how to relate to those people on your team.
Absolutely. And also, once you understand too, because so many people, everyone has their form of media that relates to them. So for you, it might be a hard copy print magazine. For my son, it might be reading it on the iPad. There's so many different outlets in which people prefer to receive their media when they watch it, whether it's Netflix or on their watches or whatever these days, so it's good to stay abreast of all the different outlets.
Yes. Well, our guest has been Angela Hutchison, Hush the documentary, and so much more. BreakingIntoHollywood.org, and of course her company BIH Entertainment. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to more great projects in the future.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Cool.